I was standing in the kitchen when my phone rang. The name on the screen said First National Bank, Trust Department. I didn't recognize the number, but something about seeing those words made my stomach drop before I even answered. Mr. Harrison, this is Patricia Chen from the Trust Compliance Division. I'm calling regarding the Special Needs Trust established for Daniel Harrison. We've flagged some unusual activity that requires immediate verification. My hand tightened around the phone. Daniel, my son, 22 years old with the cognitive capacity of a 9-year-old. The sweetest soul you'd ever meet, who couldn't understand why people lied or why anyone would hurt someone else on purpose. What kind of activity, I asked, though part of me already knew the answer would change everything. Sir, we show a withdrawal request submitted yesterday for $47,000. The request came with what appeared to be proper documentation, but our fraud detection system flagged certain inconsistencies. The signature authorization doesn't match our records. Given that this is a protected trust account, we're required to notify you immediately, and frankly, we've already contacted the authorities. I sat down at the kitchen table. Through the window, I could see Daniel in the backyard, carefully arranging his collection of painted rocks in size order, something he did every afternoon. He was wearing the blue sweatshirt his stepbrother Marcus had given him last Christmas, the same Marcus who had access to my filing cabinet, the same Marcus who had asked me detailed questions about Daniel's trust fund just 3 weeks ago, claiming he was just trying to understand how to help. Who submitted the request? I already knew, but I needed to hear it said out loud. The documentation shows Marcus Stevens. According to our records, he's listed as your stepson, but has no legal authority over this account. However, he presented what appeared to be a power of attorney document. Our verification department caught the forgery, but sir, this is a serious situation. The police are treating this as attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, watching Daniel arrange his rocks. He was humming something, probably from one of his favorite shows. He had no idea that the person he called his big brother, the person he trusted completely, had just tried to steal his future. I should have been shocked. I should have been surprised. But the truth was settling into my chest like something I'd always known was coming. I just hadn't wanted to see it. She was warm, funny, and wonderful with Daniel in a way that had nearly brought me to tears the first time I saw it. My first wife, Daniel's mother, had died when he was only 4. She'd been the one who understood how to reach him when he got overwhelmed, how to make him feel safe. For years, it had been just the two of us, and I'd carried this constant fear that I wasn't enough, that he needed more than I could give him alone. Jennifer seemed like an answer to a prayer I hadn't known how to voice. She worked as a physical therapist and had experience with special needs patients. She never treated Daniel like he was broken or strange. She learned his routines, respected his boundaries, and celebrated his small victories like they were Olympic achievements. Marcus was 19 when we met, taking a gap year before college, working at his uncle's construction company. He was polite enough, kept to himself mostly. He called me sir for the first year, which I'd actually appreciated. There was a respect there, or what I thought was respect. He's been through a lot, Jennifer told me early on. His father left when he was 12, just packed up one morning and never came back. Marcus had to grow up fast, had to be the man of the house. I think that's why he's so reserved. He learned not to expect much from people. I understood that, or I thought I did. My own father had been distant, emotionally unavailable, in that way men of his generation often were. I'd promised myself I'd be different with Daniel, that I'd show up, that I'd be present. Maybe that's why I tried so hard with Marcus, why I wanted to prove I could be the father figure he'd never had. We got married in a small ceremony at Jennifer's sister's house. Daniel was the ring bearer, carefully carrying the pillow down the makeshift aisle with such intense concentration that several guests had to wipe away tears. Marcus was my best man. He gave a short toast about second chances and new families that had sounded sincere at the time. That first year, things were good, better than good. The house felt full in a way it hadn't since Daniel's mother died. There were 4 of us at dinner instead of 2. Daniel had someone else to show his rock collection to, someone else to explain the intricate rules of his favorite card game, even though the rules only made sense to him. Marcus moved into the guest room, the one I'd used as a home office. I didn't mind. I set up a small desk in the corner of the living room. Jennifer kept saying it was temporary, that Marcus was saving up to get his own place, that he just needed a few months to get on his feet. Those few months turned into a year, then 2, then 3. The construction job ended. He worked briefly at a phone store, then quit because his manager was unreasonable. He did DoorDash for a while, but his car kept breaking down. There was always a reason, always something that wasn't quite his fault, always next month when things would turn around. He's trying, Jennifer would say. He's figuring it out. Not everyone has a clear path. I paid for his car repairs. I covered his phone bill when money was tight. When he wanted to take some online classes, I paid the registration fee. I told myself I was investing in his future, that this was what family did. Jennifer had brought so much light into our lives. This was how I could pay that back, by helping her son find his footing. But there were small things that bothered me, little moments that I pushed aside because they seemed too petty to mention. The way Marcus never quite looked at Daniel directly. He'd respond when Daniel talked to him, but there was always this slight delay, this micro-expression of annoyance that flashed across his face first. The way he'd mention, casually, how much it must cost to take care of someone like Daniel. Special needs stuff is expensive, right? Like long-term expensive? The way he'd leave his dishes in the sink, but expect Jennifer to clean them. The way he'd use my tools and never put them back. The way he'd borrow money and call it borrowing, even though we both knew I'd never see it again. "You're too hard on him," Jennifer said once, when I'd mentioned that Marcus had taken $60 from my wallet without asking. "He probably just forgot to ask. He's not good with money stuff. His father never taught him any of that." I dropped it. I always dropped it. Because bringing it up meant conflict, and conflict meant Jennifer would be upset, and upsetting Jennifer meant disrupting the peace we'd built, the peace Daniel needed. So I learned to look past things, learned to rationalize, learned to tell myself that building a blended family meant being patient, meant extending grace, meant understanding that not everyone had been raised with the same values. The day after the bank called, 2 detectives came to the house. Jennifer was at work. Marcus was supposedly at a job interview, though I'd stopped believing those were real about a year ago. Daniel was at his day program, the one he attended 3 times a week, where he did art projects and socialized with other young adults on the spectrum. The detectives were professional but firm. They explained that attempting to withdraw funds from a special needs trust through fraudulent documentation was a felony. They showed me copies of the paperwork Marcus had submitted, my signature, badly forged. A power of attorney document that looked official but had so many legal errors that any competent attorney would have spotted them immediately. "The bank's fraud detection is sophisticated," the older detective explained. "They caught it before any money changed hands, but the attempt itself is the crime. He tried to steal from his disabled brother. That's how the DA will present it, and frankly, juries don't look kindly on this kind of thing." After they left, I sat in my home office looking at the filing cabinet where I kept all of Daniel's important documents, the medical records, the disability determination paperwork, the trust documents that had taken months to set up properly with an attorney, ensuring that Daniel would be taken care of no matter what happened to me. The filing cabinet wasn't locked. It never had been. Why would it need to be? This was our home. These were people I trusted. I pulled out the trust folder. Inside I could see where documents had been disturbed, photocopied maybe. There were slight smudges on some pages that hadn't been there before. Marcus had been in here, probably multiple times, studying the paperwork, trying to figure out how to access money that wasn't his. My phone buzzed. Jennifer. The police just called me at work. They said Marcus is in trouble? Something about Daniel's money? This has to be a mistake. Marcus wouldn't do that. He loves Daniel. Can you call me? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I called my attorney. I'd been sitting there for an hour, trying to figure out how to do this, how to say the things that needed to be said. Patricia from the bank called me, I said. Marcus tried to withdraw almost $50,000 from Daniel's trust fund. He forged my signature. He created fake legal documents. The bank caught it, and they called the police. There's no mistake, Jennifer. No. She shook her head, backing away like I'd hit her. No, Marcus wouldn't do that. He wouldn't steal from Daniel. He's been so good to him, so patient. There has to be an explanation. The explanation is that he tried to commit fraud against a vulnerable adult. That's the legal term. That's what the detectives called it. They're building a case right now. You're believing them over my son, over Marcus, after everything, after we've been a family? I stood up slowly. Jennifer, I need you to hear something, and I need you to really listen. Marcus forged my signature. He created fake documents. He went into my filing cabinet and studied Daniel's trust paperwork. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was planned. This was intentional. He tried to steal from his disabled stepbrother. He's not a thief. Her voice broke. He's my son. He's a good person. He's just been struggling. Maybe he was desperate. Maybe he was going to pay it back. You don't forge documents and steal $50,000 because you're going to pay it back. So what? You're just going to let them arrest him? You're going to press charges? Destroy his life over money? I'm going to protect Daniel. That's what I'm going to do. That money is for his care, for his future. It's for group homes and medical needs and all the things he's going to require when I'm not here anymore. Marcus tried to take that. He tried to take Daniel's security, his safety, his future. She was crying hard now, her whole body shaking. Please, please don't do this. He's my son. He made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to return something you borrowed. This was a crime. And if I do nothing, what message does that send? That Daniel doesn't matter? That his needs come second? That someone can try to steal his future and face no consequences? I can't choose between you and my son. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm not asking you to choose, I said, though we both knew I was. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Marcus is going to be charged. The legal system is going to handle this. And Daniel and I need to be safe from someone who tried to exploit him. She left that night, packed a bag, got in her car, drove to her sister's house. She called me from there, said she needed time to think, that this was all too much, that she couldn't believe I was doing this to her family. I'd spent 6 years trying to build something, 6 years trying to create a home where Daniel felt safe and loved and protected. And in one phone call from a bank, it had all come apart because I'd ignored what I'd known, deep down, for a long time. Marcus didn't see Daniel as a brother. He saw him as an opportunity. Jennifer paid his bail with money from her retirement account. She called me once during that time. You could drop the charges. You could say you don't want to pursue this. The bank called the police, not me. This is out of my hands now. Even if I wanted to drop it, which I don't, the state is prosecuting. They don't need my permission. So you're just going to let him go to prison for trying to access money? He's 25 years old. His whole life is ahead of him. Daniel is 22 years old, I said. His whole life is ahead of him, too. And that life depends on the money Marcus tried to steal. This isn't complicated, Jennifer. This isn't a gray area. He committed a crime against someone who can't defend himself. She hung up. I stood there in my kitchen, holding the phone, wondering how I'd gotten here, wondering what I'd missed, what signs I'd ignored. But I knew what I'd missed. I'd seen it and chosen to look away. The contempt in Marcus's eyes when he thought no one was watching. The way he'd pump me for information about Daniel's care costs, about the trust fund, about what would happen to everything when I died. The way he'd started calling Jennifer unreasonable when she suggested he get a job, any job, just something to contribute. I'd seen it. I'd just decided that keeping the peace was more important than acknowledging the truth. I'd practiced what I was going to say, how to explain something so complicated in terms he could understand. Jennifer had to go stay somewhere else for a while. It's not because of you. You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes adults have problems that are hard to fix and they need space to think about things. But is she coming back? His face was so open, so trusting. He didn't understand that people could lie or pretend or have hidden agendas. To him, if someone was nice to you, that meant they cared about you. If someone gave you gifts, that meant they loved you. The idea that someone could smile at him while simultaneously planning to steal from him was literally beyond his comprehension. I don't know, buddy, I don't think so. Because of Marcus? I looked at him sharply. Why do you say that? He shrugged, focusing on the painted rock he was turning over in his hands. Marcus was always mad, I could tell. He didn't like being here. He didn't like me talking to him. I tried to be quiet, but sometimes I forgot. My throat tightened. Daniel, Marcus being angry was never your fault. Never. You understand? You're allowed to talk in your own home. You're allowed to exist in your own space. If Marcus had a problem, that was his problem, not yours. Okay. He didn't sound convinced. That was the thing about Daniel. He might not understand complex social dynamics, but he could read emotions better than most people gave him credit for. He'd known Marcus resented him. He'd probably known it from the beginning, and I'd done nothing. I'd told myself I was building a family, but what I'd actually done was bring someone into Daniel's home who saw him as an obstacle, as a burden, as an opportunity for profit. She looked exhausted, smaller somehow, like the last month had physically diminished her. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She walked into the living room, looking around like she was seeing it for the first time, or maybe for the last time. I've been thinking a lot, she said, sitting on the edge of the couch, about everything, about Marcus, about you, about Daniel. I waited. Marcus admitted it to me. Finally. He said he needed the money, that he was going to pay it back, that he didn't think anyone would notice if he just borrowed it for a while. He said Daniel wouldn't even know the difference, that someone like Daniel doesn't understand money anyway. There it was, the thing that had probably been in Marcus's head all along. Someone like Daniel. As if Daniel's disability made him less human, less deserving of protection, less worthy of having his future secured. That's what you wanted to tell me? I asked. That your son thinks my son is too disabled to deserve his own money? No, she shook her head. I wanted to tell you that I understand now. I understand why you did what you did, why you had to do what you did. I didn't do anything, Jennifer. Marcus did this to himself. You could have protected him. You could have told the bank it was a misunderstanding, that you'd handle it privately. You could have kept the police out of it. No, I said, I couldn't, because it wasn't a misunderstanding, and I can't handle someone trying to exploit my disabled son privately. That's not protection. That's enabling. That's telling Marcus and telling the world that Daniel's safety and security don't matter as much as avoiding consequences. She was crying again, but quietly this time, tears just running down her face. He's my son. And Daniel is mine. And I took an oath a long time ago, when Daniel's mother was dying, that I would always put him first, that I would always protect him, no matter what it cost me, even if it cost me you. So, this is it? 6 years together, and it ends like this? This ended when Marcus forged my signature, when he looked at a trust fund set up to care for a vulnerable young man and saw it as an opportunity, when he decided that Daniel's future was worth less than whatever he wanted to spend $50,000 on. That's when this ended. She stood up, wiping her face. I can't forgive you for this, for what you're doing to him. I know. I'm not asking you to, but I need you to understand something, Jennifer. I loved you. I loved the life we were building, but I love Daniel more. I will always love Daniel more, and anyone who tries to hurt him for any reason in any way will lose. Every single time. She left. I watched her car pull out of the driveway, watched the taillights disappear down the street. Then I went to check on Daniel, who was asleep in his room with his favorite stuffed elephant tucked under one arm, completely unaware that his life had almost been destroyed by someone he'd called his brother. My attorney called to tell me. Could have been worse for him. The prosecutor wanted jail time, but this is his first offense. And the bank caught it before any money actually moved. He'll have a record, though. This kind of conviction follows you. I thought about that. How Marcus, at 25, had effectively destroyed any chance at the kind of life he probably thought he deserved. No reputable employer would hire someone with a fraud conviction involving a disabled person. No future partner would easily overlook it. He'd tried to take a shortcut, tried to help himself to money that wasn't his, and it had cost him everything. Part of me felt sorry for him, a small part, the same part that had paid for his car repairs and his phone bills and his online classes, that had tried to be the father figure he'd never had, but mostly I felt nothing. Just a cold, clear certainty that I'd done exactly what needed to be done. Let her have more than she was entitled to. It wasn't generosity, it was closure. It was buying my way back to the life Daniel and I had before, the life I should have protected better, sooner. The day the divorce was finalized, I took Daniel out to his favorite restaurant, the one with the endless breadsticks he loved, and the patient waitstaff who'd learned how he liked things. He was in a good mood, telling me about a project he was working on at his day program, something involving painted rocks and a garden display. "Are you sad about Jenny?" he asked suddenly, between breadsticks. "A little," I said. "But I'm okay. Are you sad?" He thought about it, his face scrunched in concentration. "A little. But I'm okay, too. Marcus was always mean. I'm glad he's gone." "You're not mad I said that." "No, buddy, I'm not mad. You're allowed to feel however you feel about it." "Good." He smiled, relieved. "Can I have more breadsticks?" "You can have all the breadsticks you want." I went back to my filing cabinet one afternoon, looking for some tax documents. The trust folder was there, reorganized now, with additional security measures in place. I'd added a co-trustee, a professional fiduciary, who specialized in special needs planning. No one person could access Daniel's money anymore, not even me. It required dual authorization for any withdrawal, any change, any decision. I'd learned my lesson. Trust, but verify. Love, but protect. Build a family, but never at the expense of the most vulnerable person in it. My phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. I answered. "Mr. Harrison? This is Dr. Rebecca Walsh from the Regional Center. I'm calling about Daniel's progress review. I wanted to schedule a meeting to discuss some exciting opportunities we think he might be ready for." We talked for 20 minutes. Daniel was thriving at his day program, they said. He'd become a mentor to some of the younger participants. He'd shown leadership qualities they hadn't seen before. They wanted to talk about expanded programming, maybe even some part-time employment options with the right support structure. After I hung up, I sat there thinking about trajectory, about how a single decision made at the right time can alter everything that comes after. If I'd protected Marcus instead of Daniel, if I'd prioritized keeping Jennifer happy over keeping Daniel safe, where would we be now? Marcus would have learned he could get away with it. He'd have tried again, would have eventually succeeded. Daniel's trust fund would have been drained. His future would have been compromised. And I would have taught him through my inaction that his needs didn't matter, that his disability made him less important, that protecting him wasn't worth the cost of conflict. Instead, Daniel was thriving, growing, becoming more than I dared to hope he could be. And I was at peace. Not happy, not exactly. The divorce had hurt. Losing Jennifer had hurt. Discovering that someone I'd tried to help had only been looking for an angle, an opportunity, a way to profit, that had hurt too. But underneath the hurt was something solid. The certainty that I'd made the right choice, that I'd done what Daniel's mother would have wanted me to do. that I'd honored the promise I'd made to always put him first. She looked uncomfortable, like she was debating whether to acknowledge me or pretend she hadn't seen me. I made it easy for her. "Hi, Diane. How are you?" "Oh, hi, Richard. I'm fine. How's Daniel?" "He's great, actually. Really doing well." She nodded, glancing toward the exit. Then, almost against her better judgment, she said, "Marcus moved to Florida last year. Got a job doing pool maintenance. Jennifer doesn't talk about him much." "I hope he's doing okay," I said, and meant it. Not for his sake, but because the alternative, him failing, struggling, spiraling, wouldn't change anything, wouldn't undo what he'd tried to do, wouldn't restore what had been lost. "Jennifer asks about Daniel sometimes," Diane said quietly. "Wonders how he's doing. She won't reach out, but she wonders." "He's happy," I said. "He's safe. That's all that matters." Diane studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, I guess it is." She walked away, and I finished my shopping, loading the cart with Daniel's favorites, his specific brand of cereal, the apple juice he preferred, the ingredients for the spaghetti recipe we made together every Thursday night. He'd developed a complex categorization system that made sense only to him, but he explained it patiently every time, and I listened patiently every time because these moments were what I'd protected. Not the money, though, that mattered. Not the house or the routines or even the relationship with Jennifer, though I'd valued all of those things. What I'd protected was this: Daniel's right to exist without being exploited, his right to trust without being betrayed, his right to have a future that wasn't stolen by someone who looked at his vulnerability and saw opportunity. "Dad?" Daniel looked up from his rocks, his face serious. "Yeah, buddy?" "I'm glad Marcus is gone. I know I said it before, but I wanted to say it again. I didn't like being scared in my own house." My chest tightened. "You were scared?" "Sometimes. When he would look at me like I was in the way, like I shouldn't be there. I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. He wanted me to not exist so he could have my room and my money and my dad. Out of the mouths of babes, they say. Except Daniel wasn't a babe. He was a young man with his own insights, his own understanding, even if it came in simpler terms than most people used. "But he's gone now," Daniel continued, going back to his rocks. "And it's just us again, and I'm not scared anymore. That's good, right?" "Yeah, buddy, that's really good." He smiled, content, and went back to organizing his collection. I sat there watching him, this person I'd been trusted to protect, this soul who saw the world more clearly than most people would ever give him credit for. The house was quiet, peaceful, safe, and I realized I wasn't carrying the weight anymore, the constant vigilance of trying to manage Marcus's moods, trying to keep Jennifer happy, trying to build something that had been built on a foundation I couldn't trust. Now there was just this, just truth. Just the clean, clear lines of a life lived without exploitation. Just Daniel, safe and happy and unaware that his trust fund remained intact, that his future remained secure, that the person who'd tried to take that from him had faced consequences and lost. They were asking if I wanted to make a statement before his violation hearing. I thought about it for a long time, thought about what it would mean to show up, to speak, to actively participate in what would likely result in harsher consequences for him. In the end, I wrote a simple statement. Daniel Harrison is a vulnerable adult who cannot defend himself. The protection of the law is the only defense he has against exploitation. I trust the court to enforce the terms of the original sentence appropriately. No vindictiveness, no satisfaction, just clarity about what mattered. Marcus spent 6 months in county jail for the probation violation. I didn't follow it closely, didn't track his release date, didn't wonder what he was thinking or feeling or learning from the experience. By that point, he'd become irrelevant to my life. Not in a hostile way, just in a neutral, factual way. He'd tried to hurt Daniel, he'd faced consequences, and now he existed somewhere out there in the world, dealing with the results of his choices. And we existed here, in this house, in these routines, in this life that I'd fought to preserve. We had a small party at the house with his friends from his day program, the people who knew him and liked him and treated him with the genuine respect he deserved. One of his friends, a young woman named Amy, who was also on the spectrum, gave him a painted rock she'd made. It had his favorite colors, deep blue and silver, and a pattern of stars. "Because you're a star," she said simply. "You help everyone feel better when they're sad." Oh. Daniel lit up, that pure, unfiltered joy he showed when something touched him deeply. "I'll keep it forever," he promised her. "It's the best rock in my whole collection." I watched this interaction, this sweet, uncomplicated moment of friendship, and thought about what Marcus had tried to destroy. Not just money, not just a trust fund. This, Daniel's ability to have friends who valued him, his ability to exist in spaces where people saw him as a whole person, not as a burden or an opportunity. His ability to give and receive kindness without calculation. If Marcus had succeeded, if he'd drained that trust fund, Daniel's future would have been different, smaller, more limited, more dependent on public benefits that never quite covered everything, that required constant fighting and advocating and settling for less. The trust fund didn't make Daniel's life perfect, but it made it possible. It meant he could attend programs that actually challenged him rather than warehousing him. It meant he could have a quality of life that went beyond bare survival. It meant he could make plans and have goals and dream about things he wanted to do. And I'd protected that, not through confrontation or anger or revenge, just through the simple act of telling the truth when the bank called, of letting the legal system do what it was designed to do, of refusing to protect someone who tried to exploit vulnerability for personal gain. A reminder that good intentions and hope and the desire for family aren't enough if they're not built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine care. Jennifer had loved me, I think, but she'd loved Marcus more, or at least loved him in a way that made her willing to overlook, excuse, and justify behaviors that should never have been acceptable. And I'd loved her, but I'd loved Daniel more. Loved him enough to risk losing everything else to keep him safe. That's not a choice I regret. It's not even a choice I think about much anymore. It's just a fact. As natural as breathing, as fundamental as gravity. Daniel will always come first. His safety, his security, his peace of mind. Anyone who enters our lives has to understand that, has to respect that, has to prove that they see Daniel as a person, not as an obstacle or a burden or an opportunity. I'm not looking for that anymore, to be clear, not actively searching for another partner, another attempt at blended family, another chance to get it right. Daniel and I are doing fine on our own, better than fine. But if it happens naturally, if I meet someone who genuinely sees Daniel the way I do, who understands instinctively why his trust fund is sacred, why his routines matter, why his happiness is the metric by which all other decisions are measured, well, I'll be open to it. Until then, this is enough. This life we've built, just the two of us, these quiet evenings sorting rocks and making spaghetti and watching his favorite shows, these small victories at his day program, these expanding horizons, these glimpses of a future that's bright and secure and protected. By the time Daniel is 50, assuming average returns and no major economic disasters, the fund will be worth enough to ensure his care for the rest of his life. Group home costs, medical expenses, recreational activities, whatever he needs. It will all be there. That was the plan when I set it up, working with lawyers and financial advisors and special needs specialists. That was the promise I made to Daniel's mother. That was the responsibility I accepted the day Daniel was born. And Marcus tried to take it, tried to turn years of careful planning into his personal cash advance, tried to sacrifice Daniel's future for whatever he needed in the moment. The fact that he failed, that the bank caught him, that the system worked the way it was supposed to, that's not because I'm special or particularly vigilant. It's because I got lucky. Because the bank had good protocols. Because someone at that institution cared enough to flag the inconsistencies instead of just processing the request. But the fact that he tried tells me everything I need to know about who he was, about what he thought of Daniel, about what 6 years of living in our house, eating at our table, accepting our hospitality, had actually meant to him. Nothing. It had meant nothing. We were just resources to be exploited when the opportunity arose. I'm not angry about it anymore. Anger requires energy, requires ongoing engagement with the situation. I've moved past that into something cleaner, a simple, factual understanding of what happened, why it happened, and what I did about it. Do you think he's sorry? I consider the question carefully before answering. I think he's sorry he got caught. I don't know if he understands why what he tried to do was wrong. Some people don't. Because I'm disabled? Because you're vulnerable in certain ways. And some people see vulnerability and think opportunity instead of person who deserves protection. That's not about you being disabled. That's about them being the kind of person who would exploit someone who can't fight back. Daniel processes this. I'm glad you fought back. I'll always fight back, buddy. Always. That's what fathers do. That's what people who love you do. They fight for you, even when it's hard, even when it costs them things they care about. Because you're worth it. You're always worth it. He smiles, satisfied with this answer, and goes back to whatever he was doing. For him, the conversation is over. The question has been answered. He can move on. I wish it were that simple for me, but I carry it differently. Not as a burden, but as a responsibility. The knowledge that Daniel will always be vulnerable in certain ways, will always need someone watching out for his interests, will always be a target for people who see disability and think dollar signs. So I watch. I maintain the safeguards. I check the reports. I make sure the trustees are trustworthy. I plan for contingencies. I update my will regularly, making sure that if something happens to me, Daniel's care transitions smoothly to people I've vetted extensively, people who will put him first the way I do. It's not paranoia. It's reality. Marcus wasn't an anomaly. He's a type. And there will always be people like him, looking for angles, looking for vulnerabilities, looking for ways to profit off others' misfortune or disability or trust. But there will also always be people like me. People who understand that protecting the vulnerable isn't optional. It's not a favor or a kindness. It's a moral imperative. And I sleep well at night because I know which kind of person I am. Tonight, like most nights, Daniel and I had dinner together. Spaghetti, his choice. We talked about his day, his projects, his friends. Normal stuff. Easy stuff. The kind of conversation that happens in families that aren't built on hidden agendas and resentment. After dinner, he went to his room to video chat with Amy, the friend who'd given him the painted rock. They talk most evenings now, have developed a real friendship based on shared interests and genuine affection. I cleaned up the kitchen, loaded the dishwasher, wiped down the counters. Ordinary tasks that have become meditation for me. Moments to reflect, to be grateful, to remember why all of this matters. Through the window, I could see the backyard where Daniel used to arrange his rocks before Jennifer and Marcus entered our lives. The space looks different now. We've added some garden beds, installed better lighting, but the essence is the same. It's Daniel's space, safe, protected, his. My phone is on the counter where I left it. No threatening calls from the bank, no calls from the police, no calls from lawyers or prosecutors or anyone trying to tell me my son has been victimized. Just silence. Peace. The normal blessed quiet of a life lived without exploitation. That's what I fought for. That's what I won. Not through confrontation or revenge or dramatic showdowns, just through the simple, clear act of refusing to protect the wrong person. Marcus made his choices. He faces his consequences. And somewhere out there, he's living with the reputation he earned, the record he created, the future he chose when he decided that $50,000 was worth more than his stepbrother's security. Meanwhile, Daniel is here, safe, happy, unaware of most of what happened, which is exactly how it should be. He shouldn't have to carry the weight of knowing how close his future came to being stolen. He shouldn't have to live with the betrayal of someone he trusted. That's my weight to carry, and I carry it gladly, because it means he doesn't have to. I turn off the kitchen light and head upstairs to check on Daniel before I turn in for the night. He's in his room, laughing at something Amy said, his face lit up by the computer screen. "Hey, Dad," he calls out when he sees me. "Amy wants to know if we can go to the art museum this weekend. She's never been?" "Sure, buddy. Let's make a plan." "Thanks." He turns back to his screen, already making arrangements, excited about sharing something he loves with someone who matters to him. I close his door gently and stand in the hallway for a moment, listening to the sound of his voice, animated and happy and safe. This is what $50,000 was worth. Not whatever Marcus wanted to buy with it, but this, Daniel's ability to make plans with friends, to share his interests, to have a future that's bright and secure and his own. And I'd make the same choice again, 1,000 times over, without hesitation, without regret. Because at the end of the day, the math is simple: Daniel's happiness and security on one side, everything else on the other, and there's no contest. There never was.